Imagine a massive, intricate machine governing every registered business in India. Now, imagine pulling the emergency brake just before a major upgrade. That is the situation surrounding a sweeping overhaul of India's corporate rulebook. Inside these walls, a fierce debate paused the Corporate Laws Amendment Bill 2026, which rewrites the Companies and Limited Liability Partnership Acts. Corporate and Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman introduced the bill to streamline regulations and speed up business operations. But almost immediately, she proposed deeper scrutiny. She handed the package over to a Joint Parliamentary Committee, or JPC, an ad hoc panel of members from both houses of Parliament formed to investigate specific bills. Here, 31 members have until the monsoon session later this year to resolve intense disputes. This committee now holds the pen on a critical trade-off. They must decide if the priority is stripping away rules to force rapid economic growth or keeping strict guardrails in place to ensure corporate accountability. To understand what is dividing lawmakers, we have to look at the money. Specifically, it's corporate social responsibility, or CSR. By law, qualifying companies are required to spend 2% of their average net profit from the last 3 years on approved social initiatives. This chart shows the government's proposed change to that rule. The bill moves the line for mandatory CSR spending from a net profit of 5 crore rupees up to 10 crore rupees. The government argues this specific change is necessary to relieve the compliance burden on micro, small, and medium enterprises, or MSMEs. By exempting these smaller, growing enterprises from mandatory philanthropy, they keep more capital to expand operations. Opposition members argue this maneuver strips essential funding away from communities that rely on it. They view the threshold hike as a clear reduction of corporate social responsibility under the guise of helping small businesses. The JPC has to weigh these competing realities: the immediate economic benefit of accelerating the formalization of small businesses versus the loss of mandatory community funding. Another major point of friction is how the state punishes bad behavior. The bill proposes taking 21 minor corporate offenses out of the criminal courts, converting them into civil violations punished by monetary fines. To enforce these fines, the government plans to route them through a transparent digital e-adjudication platform rather than a traditional courtroom. The logic here targets corruption. Removing the threat of jail time and taking discretion away from individual government officers closes opportunities for bribery and cuts through massive bureaucratic red tape. But critics in Parliament say that removing the threat of imprisonment removes the teeth from the Companies Act. They argue that replacing prison terms with digital fines treats corporate misbehavior as just another business expense, weakening shareholder protections. The debate rests on human behavior. Does a swift, guaranteed financial penalty correct market manipulation better, or is the threat of an actual prison cell the only real deterrent? This shows the severe constitutional objection. The legislation allows the central government and the National Financial Reporting Authority to classify companies and determine compliance directly. Opponents call this excessive delegation. The executive branch bypasses parliamentary voting, leaving core policy matters to subordinate authorities. The government counters that a fast-moving economy requires agile regulators. They point out that any new regulations drafted by the NFRA still require prior consultation with stakeholders and must be laid before both houses of Parliament for a 30-day review. To back this up, they point to existing precedents. Sweeping regulatory powers are already standard practice for major financial watchdogs like the Securities and Exchange Board of India, or SEBI, which regulates the country's securities and commodity markets. This specific clash tests the limits of executive power. The committee must decide how much authority a fast-acting regulatory state actually needs, and when that speed threatens the safety of rigid legislative oversight. Not every page of the amendment is contested. There is broad agreement on modernizing day-to-day operations, like allowing companies to hold annual general meetings, or AGMs, virtually, and replacing cumbersome affidavits with simple self-declarations. These changes feed into a massive macroeconomic objective. Stripping away obsolete laws and digitizing compliance is meant to signal a climate of business ease, aiming to attract large-scale global investment directly into the Indian economy. However, history shows a clear pattern. When corporate governance standards are aggressively loosened to attract capital, the resulting blind spots can pave the way for market scandals. Right now, this entire interconnected web of proposed changes, objections, and compromises sits on the desks of those 31 committee members. The final report, expected during the monsoon session, serves as a definitive blueprint for the speed, culture, and accountability of the Indian economy for the next decade.